Hello everyone, welcome to Serapatame. I'm Lindy, and today I am very excited because today I am going to share with you guys my Wanderer past life remembrance with everyone. So hopefully this video doesn't get too long, but I guess I'll just start with saying that I've made some previous videos about densities, and I also made a previous video on what a wanderer is. So if you haven't watched those videos, I suggest you go check those out because it will help you understand this video a little bit more. And I also just want to give a disclaimer for people who are watching, that this may sound very odd and far out there. What I'm about to talk to you guys about is based on the whole idea of reincarnation and past lives. Okay, and then I'm going to share something that goes a little step further into that. So, I consider myself a wanderer, which is a soul that has incarnated on other planets. So, we don't necessarily consider Earth our home planet. However, all wanderers are human beings right now living this human experience, and we have been sent here on a mission to raise the vibration of the planet, so to elevate everyone's consciousness. That is our mission, and it can be expressed in several different ways, but that's ultimately our goal. So before we are incarnated here on Earth, wanderers agree to go on this mission. So we agree to a mission to come here to Earth, and but we have the same amnesia that everyone else has when they are born. We don't come into this world with all of our past life memories or anything like that. So we forget just like everyone else does when they come here. And so part of a wanderer's mission is to remember where their soul has been. And so I did not remember this until I got well into adulthood. And I thought, because I've been on a spiritual journey for quite some time, okay, and I've always been, not always, but on my spiritual journey, I've been really into meditation and things like this. And so I've read a lot about past lives and past life regression, and I really thought for a while on my spiritual journey that the only way you could remember your past incarnations is by getting a past life regression done. Okay, but then I found another YouTuber that actually explained that you could remember things like this through meditation. And since I had already been practicing meditation for quite some time, I started following her advice. And so when I remembered this past life that I have lived, I set an intention for the meditation. And I had done a lot of research into wanderers and starseeds and this whole topic. I've read a lot of books. There are a lot of books, and this is a research topic that people have looked into, and people have remembered past lives as E.T.s, like living on other planets. Okay, so this is just not like some crazy thing I'm making up, and my viewers probably know that. So anyway, so if I seem a little nervous, it's because I am sharing my authentic story with you guys, and that is not an always easy thing to do. But I promise if you stick around and listen to the whole video, it will be very interesting because it is very different and it's going to be unlike anything you've ever heard. Even if you've heard other people's remembrances or you've had your own remembrance of a past incarnation or a past incarnation on another planet, this, I guarantee you, is going to be different than anything you've ever heard. Okay, so I set an intention for the meditation, and I was pretty convinced at this point that my soul had lived on another planet. I felt that very strongly, and all my research and all my meditations and all the books I read, it was pointing in that direction. It was like I was being led down this rabbit hole to finding this out about myself. And so eventually, when I was ready, I set an intention and I asked that I please be shown an E.T. life of mine, because I was pretty certain at this point that I had lived lives on other planets. So, now going into any past life, whether you do it through regression by a hypnotherapist and they regress you back into a past life, or if you just do it through a meditation, finding out about the past lives that you have lived is extremely insightful, and it really helps you to know your soul and know yourself so much more. And there will be things that you remember. You have like a lot of aha moments where you're like, oh, that makes sense why I'm this way, or now it makes so much more sense why I like this color, or why I have this interest, or why I am this way. So, of course, that's what remembering this past life did for me. Okay, so let's just set the scene. Let's get into it, and I'm going to share with you guys the whole remembrance that I've had. So, basically, I was taken to this forest, okay? And at first when I remembered, I was standing on this huge tree. It was like the big trees of California, and maybe bigger. And so I was standing on this huge tree branch looking out into nature, and I could see that the sky was a different color than the sky is here on Earth. And it seemed very dark, and the sky was like an indigo color. And I was looking out into the forest, and then I was like wondering, okay, where am I? Like, what do I look like? So I looked down at my hands, and they were a slightly different color than my skin color, but they were tan. So, I mean, my skin tone is like very pale, but my hands in this lifetime were a lot bigger. They were a lot longer and a lot more slender. I don't think I had fingernails. And they weren't quite human hands, but they were hands indeed, but not quite human. And then I realized that I was actually wearing like a brown cloak with a hood, and I had a bird sitting on my shoulder, and I had a staff, like a rod, and then on the top of the rod there was like a crystal inside the rod, and I actually like drew illustrations and everything like that, so you guys could get a better idea. So this is what I looked like, and later on I found out what my name was, and it was Dunandi. Sounds like a pretty foreign name, right? Like I've never met anyone by that name here on Earth. So this gives you guys an idea of what my rod was like, and it did shine like that. And then I'm wearing my cloak, and I have some like dreadlocks, so I did have hair, but they were kind of like dreadlocky looking. My hair was really dark brown, like almost black, and I was wearing a brown cloak. And then I don't think I was wearing anything underneath the cloak, and this and that. So I had remembrances of walking through this jungle-like setting, and it looked similar but different to the nature here on Earth. So the plant life was a lot brighter, and actually later on, after I remembered this, I realized that there are some similarities to this E.T. Remembrance and that movie Avatar. So I think I was a lot bigger, like the avatars, like the E.T.s are in that Avatar movie. I was a lot bigger like that. I didn't look like them, but the forest was really bright and lit up like in that movie. The forest is really bright and lit up, and everything like glows in the dark. It was similar to that. And I felt this like deep connection with my surroundings. And then later on, because I didn't read the book, The Law of One, I read it later. So I read the Law of One book after I had remembered this, and I'm actually still working my way through the Law of One. And the Law of One describes densities, which I have another video where I go through what densities are. But basically, densities are different levels of consciousness. And so I came to the conclusion that this ET life was actually a higher density. So I've lived in a higher density, and I think it may have been fourth density, but that's just guessing. But the reason I think it's a higher density is because I felt a connection with this planet, with the plant life, with the animals, and also the other beings like myself on this planet. I felt such a deep connection to everything on this planet, and it was so much deeper of a connection than I have with everything here on this planet. So even though I was like a separate being, I felt really at one and connected with everything on this planet. And like I said, that's why I think it was a higher density, because the higher you move in densities, the less separate you feel from everything else. And it was just such a visceral experience and visceral feeling of connection with everything, even though I was like a separate being from it. And then like in this lifetime, I had remembrances of, yeah, just like being in nature and being really connected in nature, and working as like a medicine woman. So I worked as like some kind of medicine woman. I have memories of like grinding like herbs up and things like that. And I'm into holistic health now in my life now. So a lot of this stuff in this life really made sense to me. And it felt very much like a life that my soul had lived. So now I want to get more into like my appearance and what I looked like, because that really blew my mind. And even if you are into like UFOs and ETs and you're into that kind of stuff, like I am into that kind of stuff, I have never heard of a being that looks like this, and that's why it's so fascinating. So I was a lot taller and more slender, okay? And then my face, of course, I had like two eyes and a nose and and ears and things like that, but they were just different looking than a human's are. So my eyes were like so big. Like in this picture, once again, I'll show you this picture. You can see like my eyes are huge, right? Like they're huge. So my eyes were huge, and I got the sense that I actually had night vision. I got the sense that it was very dark on this planet and that I had night vision. And then the more that I started remembering and like thinking about the remembrance after I had come out of the meditation, I started to feel like my appearance closely resembled that of a frog. Like it had some similarities of a frog. Except I was a very conscious and aware being, like human beings are. Okay? But like the eyes were really big, and I felt, like I said, I had night vision. And then what reminded me of a frog was in particular this area on my face, because I didn't really have like a nose that like came out like, you know, our noses are. It wasn't like that. It was actually more of a it like blended in with my face more. My nose did. And then I had this big bridge, kind of like frogs do, like a bridge on my mouth, and my mouth came out a little bit. And I didn't have like ears, like I just had little holes on the side. Maybe I did have ears. Yeah, I think maybe I did have ears. They look different, like really different from the ears we have. So yeah, is this blowing your mind so far? I hope it is, because I mean, it blew my mind. It blew my mind. It was such a real, visceral experience for me, just like remembering a past human life would be. And I've remembered other past lives where I was human. But this by far was the most like detailed remembrance I've ever had of a past life, by far. Okay, so like some other really interesting things about this life on this other planet, somewhere out in the cosmos. I mean, I don't even know where this planet was. I've had a hard time like getting answers like that about it. But my intuition kind of tells me it was somewhere in the Pleiades. But I don't know that for certain. That's just kind of like what I think could be a possibility, because I know there's a lot of life in the Pleiades. There's a lot of really consciously evolved life in the Pleiades, and that just feels, the Pleiades, when I look up at it in the night sky, it feels kind of like home to me. So that's really why I think that planet was in that star cluster, but I don't know for certain. Another really, really interesting thing was I realized that I had a family and I was part of a tribe. And I had like a mate, or, you know, like a partner in life, and he was male. And I drew a picture of him, but the picture does not do him justice. It kind of looks like ugly in the picture. Let me see if I can find the picture of him here. Let's see. Oh yeah, here he is. So, oh, and like this is another really fun thing I do is I have an art background. Like I went to art school for fine arts. And so I've always been artistic, and I always love to journal about my meditation experiences. I have all kinds of really cool drawings about them. But so like this is just like a quick sketch but this is my mate. So yeah, as you can see, like his eyes are really big. His mouth just kind of like bridges out, and then we did have ears. They were really pointy. And yeah, there's my man. And what was really interesting about him is his voice. So we did speak. We didn't like communicate telepathically, like, you know, I'm sure you guys have heard like a lot of other E.T. races communicate that way. I don't think that we did, although we were like a lot more advanced spiritually, unconsciously than human beings are. I know that, but I don't think we did too much like telepathy or anything like that. So we had a language that we did speak, and his voice was like so deep. It was deeper than any human voice I've ever heard. It was super deep. And how I figured out what my name was is because, well, I asked what my name was, like in the meditation, and then I kept hearing him, like, you know, like yelling my name out. Dunandi, Dunandi. And he kept like yelling my name out, and I was like, oh, that's what my name is. My name is Dunandi. Just, you know, okay. And then another thing about this remembrance is I had a baby, and the baby was like so cute. And how I figured out I had a baby is I just, you know, like looked down, and there was a baby on my chest. And so this species or race of beings, they're like really tribal. Like, I would compare them to like the tribal civilizations on Earth, but just a little bit more like advanced. And I'll get to that. You'll kind of understand what I'm talking about. You'll understand what I mean by that later. Like I already said, it was a higher density. But yeah, I'll get into that in a minute. So, but the baby, like I carried the baby around with me, like all over the place. And so I looked down, and the baby's on my chest, under my cloak, and it has like the most biggest, like beautiful eyes, and it was bald, like a lot of babies are, and the biggest, most beautiful eyes, and it looked up at me. And then what was so cool about the baby is it had suction cups on the end of its fingers, which was so fascinating to me. And so then I realized that these suction cups, only the babies have. The babies have the suction cups to latch onto their mom, so they can just, you know, go around with their mom. And like, seriously guys, I can't make this stuff up. Like, I'm pretty creative, but I'm not this creative where I can just make this kind of stuff up. So, I mean, it blew my mind. And it blew my mind, but at the same time, it made so much sense to me. Like, it felt right for me, and it really felt like I was remembering this and not just like dreaming about it or like fantasizing. It felt like I was really remembering. So yeah, that was the baby, and I carried the baby around with me like all the time. And then one last thing that I want to share about this remembrance is like this very interesting way that I had of interfacing with my spouse. So we were like just sitting on the ground. Like we did have homes, but like they were in the middle of this huge forest. And I'm not sure if the whole planet was a forest, but we were definitely like integrated into the forest, like totally lived our whole lives there. And so we're sitting, but we had these like pretty simple like huts, and we were sitting on the floor in the hut, and we were sitting Indian style, like cross-leg on the floor, facing one another. and then we were interfacing, which means like we had our hands, and interfacing is like, I mean, human beings don't really do it that much, but I've heard of it referenced to in like cosmic disclosure. But interfacing is when like two people or beings will exchange information like telepathically. So I kind of have a feeling it was something like interfacing, like we were doing something like that, except the really cool thing about this interfacing was that when we put our hands together and we were really focused on the interfacing, this green bright light started radiating from our hands and coming like all the way out and like radiating from our hands. And I thought that was like really cool. So let me just show you like some other pictures, because I did draw like one more picture. I mean, these are all just like pretty quick sketches that I've done, but this is a more detailed sketch because I started to color it in a little bit and stuff like that. So this is Dunandi. Can you see her? Yeah, there we go. See Dunandi. See her little staff she has. And yeah. So you see what I mean, where it's like we look like, you know, humanoid, but I'm obviously not human. I'm not human. So, that is my crazy E.T. past life remembrance. And to this day, it is still one of the most profound experiences and journeys that I've been on in a meditation. And it has totally helped me understand why I have felt so out of place in my life here on earth. And it has helped me understand so much more about myself and my soul and where it's been. And it was so profound that I thought I would share it with whoever is watching this video. So I really hope that this was interesting to you and that you found it fascinating. And if you have had some past life remembrance, and especially if you're a wanderer and you've remembered a past life on another world, then please share below in the comment section. Or if you want to email me, feel free to email me about this. My email address is serpadme@gmail.com. So that's serpadme@gmail.com. And thanks for sticking around and listening to this amazing story. And I just bless you guys on your journey and your awakening. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.